The first thing my 6-year-old daughter said was not that someone had changed the picture. It was not that her cousin Ruby was standing where she remembered standing, or that the Christmas card in her lap looked wrong. Maisie stared at the glossy card, then at the proof sheet beside it, pressed one small finger against her own face in the original photograph, and whispered, "Mommy, why did Grandma erase me?" I remember the exact feeling that went through me then, because it was the moment I realized I had spent 6 Christmases looking at one version of my family while my parents had been mailing everyone else another. Before I tell you what I found in that box and why my mother was screaming at me the next morning, I hope you're doing well. Stay with me. Because what looked like a cruel photo choice turned into something much bigger, and if you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe to the channel. This happened on December 22nd, just a few days before Christmas, when my parents hosted our family celebration early so everyone could keep their own plans for Christmas Day. At the time, I was 38. My husband Adam and I had been married for more than 11 years, and I thought I understood exactly how my mother operated. I was wrong about that last part. My mother, Marilyn, had always been the person who organized everything. She remembered birthdays, kept addresses, planned holiday meals, scheduled family pictures, and stored 20 years of ribbons, gift tags, cards, and photo envelopes in labeled bins that nobody else was supposed to reorganize. I had stopped letting her make decisions for me a long time ago, but I had never considered her love of organization dangerous. That afternoon, while Adam was talking to my father in the living room and my younger sister Erin was helping in the kitchen, Maisie wandered into the little side room where Mom kept wrapping supplies because she wanted a snowman gift tag for Ruby's present. A few minutes later, she called for me, but not loudly. That was what made me go immediately. Maisie was sitting cross-legged on the carpet beside an open storage bin, surrounded by tissue paper, old envelopes, and several stiff photo sheets. In one hand, she held a professional proof from that year's family session. In the other was a finished Christmas card I had never seen before. The proof showed all of us in front of my parents' fireplace, with Maisie standing between Mom and Dad and Ruby just to Mom's other side. The card used the same setting, the same clothes, the same decorations, but Maisie was gone and Ruby had been moved into the center. At first, I thought I was looking at one alternate shot. Photographers take dozens of pictures, and I was not going to accuse anyone of something ugly based on one card my daughter had found in a storage bin. Then I saw the year printed in tiny type on another envelope underneath it. I opened that sample and found the Christmas card from the year before. Maisie was missing from that one too. I checked the next envelope, then the next, and by the time I reached the oldest set, my hands had gone cold. There were official mailed Christmas cards from 2020, 2021, 2022, 2023, 2024, and 2025. Maisie had been in the original family photographs every single year. In every finished card, she was either cropped out, replaced with another frame, or removed through a composite that left Ruby occupying the place my daughter had stood. The strangest part was that I had photographs from those same Christmas sessions hanging in my own house. In mine, Maisie was always there. That year, Mom had already handed me a large print in a red dot envelope and called it your copy of the family picture, just like she had every December. Inside the storage bin, I now saw another red dot sample that matched mine. A blue dot version centered more heavily on Ruby, and the green dot mailed card that erased Maisie altogether. There were studio envelopes and order sheets mixed among them, and although I did not stand there long enough to study every line, I photographed the fronts, backs, labels, proof sheets, and the order summary that happened to be visible before I touched anything else. "Did you find the tags?" Mom called from the kitchen. I looked toward the doorway and felt anger hit me so hard that for a second I wanted to walk straight into that kitchen and lay 6 Christmas cards across her counter. Then I looked down at Maisie. She was watching my face, waiting for me to tell her what this meant, and that changed my decision. Whatever my mother had done, my daughter did not need to watch adults turn her pain into a screaming match. I put the envelopes back exactly where they had been and closed the bin. When Mom appeared a minute later, smiling and holding a roll of tape, I told her Maisie was tired and we were going home earlier than planned. She frowned and asked whether something had happened, but I said I would call her later. My father, George, barely looked up when we left, and at that point I did not know whether he had ever seen those green cards or whether this was entirely my mother's doing. In the car, Maisie was quiet until we were halfway home. Then she asked, "Is Ruby better at pictures than me?" I pulled into a parking lot because I did not want to answer while watching traffic. I turned around and told her Ruby had done nothing wrong, that nobody had taken anything from her, and that an adult had made an unfair decision about the pictures. I promised her I would handle the adult part, and I meant it. After Maisie went to bed, Adam and I sat at our kitchen table with my phone between us. I showed him 6 green cards, 6 proof sheets, the red sample I recognized, the blue sample I did not, and the studio paperwork I had photographed. He stared at them for a long time before asking the question I had been avoiding. "Does Erin know?" "Of course she knows," I said immediately. "Ruby is in all of them." Adam did not argue with me. He just asked, "Do you know that? Or do you think that?" That question irritated me because I had spent years believing I was the practical one in my family. Erin and I were not close, and I had plenty of reasons for that. Or at least I thought I did. Mom had always described Erin as the easier daughter, the one who stayed close, the one who wanted more family involvement, and Ruby had clearly benefited from that. It was easy for me to look at those cards and decide my sister had been part of the arrangement, but easy was not the same thing as proven. So I did not call my mother. I did not call my father, and I did not send Erin an angry message accusing her of letting her daughter replace mine. Instead, I printed copies of the 6 green Christmas cards, paired them with the corresponding original proofs, and included the red and blue samples from that year. On one sheet of paper, I wrote only, "Put these beside whatever Mom gave you. Don't call her first." Erin lived about 45 minutes from us, so I used a local courier that could deliver the envelope the next morning. When the driver picked it up, Adam asked whether I was sure I did not want to sleep on it first. I told him I had already spent 6 years sleeping on something I did not know existed. What I did not understand yet was that those photographs were only the visible part of what my mother had been controlling. At 8:17 the next morning, my phone rang. Mom's name filled the screen before I had even finished my coffee, and when I answered, she did not say hello. She did not ask whether I had sent Erin anything, and she did not ask what I had found. She screamed, "What did you do?" And in that instant, I knew something important. My mother already understood exactly what had been inside that envelope. My mother's voice came through the phone so sharply that I pulled it away from my ear. "What did you do?" she shouted again. I looked at the clock on the microwave. 8:17. The courier had been scheduled to reach Erin's house sometime between 7:30 and 8, which meant Erin had opened the envelope, seen the photographs, and called Mom almost immediately. I had expected that possibility. What I had not expected was the way Mom skipped every question a confused person would normally ask. She did not say, "What envelope?" She did not ask what I had found or why I had sent anything to Erin. She sounded like someone who already knew exactly which door had just been opened. "I sent Erin copies of some Christmas photos," I said. "Why?" There was a brief silence, the kind that happens when someone realizes they have answered too much before saying anything. Then Mom shifted. "Because she called me in tears. You dragged Ruby into this, Claire, 2 days before Christmas." "She called you in tears?" "Yes. Because you made her feel like her daughter did something wrong." I stood at the kitchen counter and looked toward the hallway. Adam was helping Maisie get dressed in her room, and I lowered my voice. "I didn't say Ruby did anything wrong. I sent Erin pictures, that's all. You sent her 6 years of pictures like evidence in a trial." That word 6 landed harder than the shouting. I had not told Mom how many years I had copied. I had not told her what was in the envelope at all. "How do you know exactly what I sent?" Another pause, then she snapped. "Because Erin told me." That was possible, of course. Erin could have opened the envelope and listed everything she found, but Mom's reaction still bothered me because there had been no surprise in it, no confusion, just anger that the material had moved from one daughter to the other. I asked the question I had been holding since the night before. "Why are there 6 mailed Christmas cards I've never seen?" Mom sighed as if I were exhausting her. "They're different versions for different people. Families do that all the time." "Did I ask you to remove Maisie from the mailed version?" "You always said you were careful about her pictures." "That isn't what I asked." I am not having this conversation while you're in one of these moods. My grip tightened around the phone. Did I ask you to remove her? You know what, Claire? I'm not going to let you rewrite years of perfectly normal family decisions because you suddenly decided Ruby got too much attention. Then she hung up. I stared at the screen for several seconds before putting the phone down. That was when a family group message arrived. Mom had beaten me there too. The message was sent to me, Aaron, Dad, Adam, and a few relatives who usually got pulled into holiday logistics. She wrote that I had gone through private family storage, taken old photographs out of context, and become upset over personalized Christmas cards. She added that Ruby had nothing to do with any of it, and that she hoped everyone would refuse to participate in jealousy between cousins. I read the message twice. The phrase between cousins was the part that made me angriest because there was no jealousy between Maisie and Ruby. There had never been. Mom was creating one in writing before either child even knew there was a conflict. Dad texted me privately less than a minute later. Don't ruin Christmas over pictures. Your mother was respecting what she thought you wanted. I typed. What did she think I wanted? 3 dots appeared, disappeared, then appeared again. Privacy for Maisie. I took a screenshot. I did not answer him after that. At 8:42, Aaron finally texted me directly. Why are you involving Ruby in this? The message hit exactly where Mom knew it would. For years, I had believed Aaron accepted every advantage Mom handed her because it benefited Ruby. I had watched Ruby get the center seat at dinners, the first pick of ornaments, the longer visits, the louder praise. I had never accused Aaron of asking for those things, but I had assumed she noticed and enjoyed them. The envelope had been my first attempt to stop assuming, and her first message made me want to go right back to the old habit. I started typing, because your daughter replaced mine in every card. Then I deleted it. Instead, I wrote, what did Mom give you as your copy of the family photo each year? Aaron did not answer immediately. About 5 minutes later, a photo appeared. It showed the print from Christmas 2025. Ruby stood close to Mom and Dad, smiling between them. Maisie was still in the picture, but farther to the side beside Adam and me. It was not the red dot version hanging in my house, and it was not the green card Maisie had found. I zoomed in on the corner of Aaron's envelope. Blue sticker. My stomach tightened. Send me last year's too, I wrote. She sent 2024. Blue sticker again, different composition again. I walked to the dining table and opened the folder of photos I had printed the night before. I placed my red 2024 keepsake beside Aaron's blue version and the green card I had copied from Mom's archive. 3 pictures from the same holiday session. 3 different visual stories. Aaron called before I could ask anything else. What exactly are you saying Mom did? She asked. I'm not saying anything yet. I'm asking what you knew. I knew she didn't use Maisie in the mailed cards. The bluntness of that answer made my chest go hot. You knew? Because Mom said you didn't want Maisie's picture sent around. I stopped. Aaron continued before I could respond. She said you were private about her face being mailed to people you didn't know well. Neighbors, church people, her volunteer friends. I thought it was your rule. I never made that rule. There was silence on Aaron's end. I never told Mom not to use Maisie's picture, I said. Not once. That's not what she told me. What exactly did she tell you? I don't remember every conversation. Then don't remember, find something. That came out sharper than I intended. But Aaron did not argue. I heard movement, a drawer opening, then the faint sound of her tapping through her phone. I have an old message, she said after a minute. From 2021. Read it. She hesitated, then did. Claire asked us not to circulate Maisie's picture. We're using Ruby in the mailed card. Please don't turn it into a thing. I closed my eyes. Send me the screenshot. She did. The date was December 2021. I had never asked for any of it. Aaron said quietly, I believed her. I looked at the message and felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not trust. Just the first crack in a conclusion I had carried for years. You never asked me? No, she said. Because why would I? If you wanted privacy for your kid, that was your business. Didn't it seem strange that Ruby was replacing her? I thought Mom was making a different card instead of mailing Maisie's face. She told me you'd agreed. I walked to the sideboard and pulled out the red dot keepsake Mom had handed me that week. I didn't even know there was another card. Erin exhaled. She told me you knew. I sent her a picture of my red print. A few seconds later, she sent me her blue one again. Then I sent the green card. For a while, neither of us spoke. Finally, Erin said, "So she gave you one picture, me another, and mailed a third. That's what it looks like. That doesn't mean she was trying to erase Maisie." "No, it doesn't. I meant it, and saying it mattered." The night before, I had already decided Erin was part of this. That morning, I had almost decided Mom's motive too. I still believed what happened to Maisie was cruel, but I did not yet know why it had been done, or who had understood what. Erin's voice softened slightly. "I want to look through my old prints." "Do that. I'm not calling Mom again." "Good." There was another pause, less hostile than the earlier ones, but not warm. We had too many years between us for one ugly discovery to turn us into sisters again overnight. "I can meet after Christmas," she said. "The 27th? Coffee shop on Manchester? Fine. Bring every red one you still have. Bring the blue ones." She hung up without saying goodbye. A minute later, another screenshot came through. It was a second-old message from Mom, sent to Erin a few days after the first one in 2021. Mom had written, "Claire wants Ruby used because she doesn't want strangers looking at Maisie. She said you'd understand." I read it twice. Then a third message from Erin appeared beneath it. If that was a lie, I need to know what else was. Erin chose the coffee shop because it was halfway between our houses and, more importantly, nowhere near Mom's. I got there 10 minutes early on December 27th and took a table in the back corner where we could spread things out without an audience. I had a folder with every red dot Christmas print I could find. Screenshots of the 6 green cards Maisie had discovered, and the studio pages I had photographed at Mom's house. Erin walked in carrying a shoebox under one arm and her old phone in the other hand. We had spent Christmas Day with our own families and exchanged only practical texts since our last call. There had been no apology, no sentimental breakthrough, no pretending the last several years between us had suddenly disappeared because Mom might have lied. That was probably why the meeting had any chance of being useful. Erin sat across from me and put the shoebox on the table. "Before we start, I need one rule." I was going to say the same thing. "If either of us says, 'Mom told me you said,' it doesn't count." I nodded. "Unless there's a text, email, recording, or somebody else who heard it." Her mouth tightened a little. "Fine." We started with the pictures because they were the simplest. Red, blue, green. Year by year. My private keepsake print. Erin's private keepsake print. The official card Mom and Dad had mailed out. Seeing 3 versions side by side was worse than looking at the green cards alone because the pattern was no longer abstract. In my red copy from 2023, Maisie stood close to Mom while Ruby leaned against Erin. In Erin's blue copy, Ruby was between Mom and Dad, and Maisie had been shifted toward the side with Adam and me. In the green card, Maisie was gone entirely. The same thing happened in different ways every year. The poses changed, the crops changed, but the hierarchy did not. By the time we reached 2020, Erin was rubbing her thumb along the edge of one print so hard I thought she might bend it. "I really thought you knew," she said. "I really thought you knew more than you did." "That's not the same thing." "No, it isn't." That answer seemed to surprise her. For years, we had been good at turning any disagreement into a courtroom where the only goal was proving who started it. I did not want to do that anymore, even if I still wanted badly to be angry with her. We moved to the messages. Erin had synced years of old texts to her current phone, and I had most of mine backed up too. At first, the pattern was small enough that either of us could have explained it away. Mom told Erin in 2021 that I wanted limited circulation of Maisie's picture. That same week, Mom had texted me that Erin wanted one Christmas where Ruby didn't have to share the spotlight. Erin stared at my screen, then turned hers toward me. The dates were 3 days apart. "So which one was supposed to be true?" she asked. "Apparently both, depending on who she was talking to." Erin gave a humorless laugh. "That sounds like Mom." I almost said, "You knew that too," but stopped myself. I had known it in my own way. Mom adjusted details. She softened things. She told one person, I didn't want to upset you. And another, I was trying to protect her. What I had never done was put her versions next to each other. We kept going. A birthday gift I had mailed Erin years earlier that she never thanked me for turned out to have sat at Mom's house for almost 2 months because Mom had offered to save us postage and combine it with other things. A dinner invitation Erin believed I had declined had never reached me because Mom had told the host I was probably busy. None of that proved a grand plan. Some of it could still have been careless, intrusive, or overly controlling without being deliberate sabotage. I said that out loud because I could see Erin moving too fast toward the opposite conclusion now. She lied, Erin said. About some things, yes. You're still defending her? No. I'm separating what we know from what we think. I don't want to replace one story with another just because the second one makes me feel better. Erin leaned back. You always do that. Do what? Talk like you're writing a report. I looked at her. And you always take that as me trying to win. Because usually you are. That landed because there was enough truth in it to hurt. I let it sit. While we were searching a 2022 text thread, I saw a voice memo I had sent Mom after a fight with Erin. The timestamp pulled the whole night back into my head. Erin and I had argued over a family dinner. Something about Ruby grabbing one of Maisie's toys, and me correcting her too sharply. It had turned into a larger fight about parenting, then about old resentments that had nothing to do with either child. I had gone home furious, and sent Mom a short voice message from my car. I did not play it. Erin noticed the icon. What's that? A voice memo I sent Mom after we fought. What did you say? I remember enough. She waited. I said I was done trying with you. I said you made everything about yourself. Her face changed, not dramatically, just enough that I knew the words had found their target. So some of this was real. Yes, that matters. I know. She looked back down at the table. Good. Because I'm not interested in discovering Mom lied and then pretending you and I were secretly best friends the whole time. We weren't. That was uncomfortable, but it was also the cleanest thing either of us had said all morning. The first discovery that truly changed the room came when Erin brought up Ruby's birth. Ruby had been born early in August 2018 and spent time in the NICU. Erin had never forgiven me for not showing up right away. I had always believed she had not wanted visitors. You told Mom hospitals made you uncomfortable, Erin said. No, I didn't. She told me you were waiting until things settled down. I searched my old messages using Erin's name, then Mom's. It took a few minutes, but I found one from that week. Tell Erin I can come whenever she wants me there. I don't want to overwhelm her. Mom had replied, I will. She's exhausted. I'll let you know. I turned the screen toward Erin. Her face went still. She searched her own messages and found one from Mom on the same date. Claire says she'll wait until things calm down. Don't worry about managing visitors right now. Erin read both several times. I kept waiting for you to ask me directly, she said. I thought asking Mom was safer because you were in the NICU with a premature baby. And I thought you couldn't be bothered. Neither of us spoke for a while. The coffee shop noise seemed strangely loud around us. Then Erin said, Maisie. I knew what she meant before she explained. Maisie was born in May 2019. Erin had not come to see us for days. I had told myself she was overwhelmed with Ruby, who was still under a year old. Erin searched her messages and found one she had sent Mom the day after we came home. Can I come see Claire and the baby tomorrow? I don't want to just show up. Mom's reply was there. Claire only wants immediate family for now. Give her a little space. I laughed once, but there was nothing funny in it. You were immediate family. I know. I searched my own thread from the same week. There it was. Tell Erin she can come whenever she's ready. No pressure. I know she has Ruby. Mom had replied with a heart emoji. That tiny red heart made me angrier than the bigger lies because of how normal it looked. Erin stared at it and whispered, She told me you didn't want me there. I looked at her. She told me you were busy. For the first time since we sat down, Erin looked less defensive than tired. Why would she do that? I don't know yet. She had to know what that would do. Maybe, but we still don't know why. Erin's jaw tightened. You're doing it again. Doing what? Keeping her motive in the unproven box. Yes, she shook her head, but not angrily this time. You really did become an operations person, and you really did become someone who wants an answer before the evidence is finished. That one was rude. It was also true. She almost smiled, then stopped herself. We sat there another hour, but we did not solve 20 years. We found enough to know the problem was bigger than Christmas cards and smaller than the fantasy that Mom had controlled every single bad thing that ever happened between us. Some wounds were hers. Some were ours. Some were probably both. When we finally packed the prints back into their folders, Erin did not hug me. I did not expect her to. She picked up the shoebox, looked at the stacked red, blue, and green versions one more time, then said, "Mom lied to both of us." "Yes. That doesn't erase what you said to me yourself." "I know. And it doesn't erase what I said to you." "No." She stood, then stopped with one hand on the back of the chair. "If Dad helped mail those cards," she said, "he saw what was in them." I looked at her. Erin's expression hardened. I want to know what he knew. I did not call Dad that afternoon. Erin wanted to, and I understood why. But by then I had learned enough to know anger made bad questions. If we called him demanding, "How could you let Mom do this?" he would give us the answer he had always given whenever conflict entered a room. He did not know, he did not want to get involved, and everyone should calm down. So, when I got home, I opened a legal pad on the kitchen table and drew 3 columns across the page. At the top of the first column, I wrote verified. The second said conflicting. The third said assumed. Erin called while I was still sorting screenshots. I put her on speaker and read the headings aloud. "You're making categories?" she asked. "I'm trying not to become Mom." There was a pause. "That's dramatic." "No. Dramatic would be deciding every bad memory we have was manufactured because we found 3 lies." I put the green cards, Mom's texts, and the messages around Ruby's NICU in the first column. Things we could actually show someone. In the second column went memories that matched emotionally but did not yet have a document attached to them. In the third, I wrote the conclusions we were tempted to jump to. Mom wanted us to hate each other. Mom always preferred Erin. Dad knew everything. Erin was innocent. I was innocent. Erin objected to the last 2. "I never said I was innocent. You've been acting like I thought you helped erase Maisie." "You did think that." "Yesterday." "That's my point." I leaned back in my chair. "I believed something because it fit what I already thought about you. That is exactly what I don't want to do again." Her tone softened a fraction. "Fine, keep your columns." That was when I went back to the pictures from Mom's storage bin and noticed something I had missed the first night. The colored stickers were not random. On every photo envelope I had captured, red appeared on the keepsake print that matched what I had at home. Blue appeared on Erin's style of print. Green appeared on the mailed Christmas cards. I zoomed in on one studio order summary from 2023. The wording was ordinary enough that I nearly skipped it. Red keepsake print, image 421, A. Blue keepsake print, image 421, B. Green holiday card, image 421C. Under the green line was a customer note. Use ruby-centered composite. I stared at those 4 words for a long time. Not because they proved why Mom had done it. They did not. They did not prove Erin had asked. They did not prove Dad understood the reason. But they did prove something important. The green version had not happened by accident. I sent Erin the screenshot. She called less than a minute later. Ruby-centered composite. "I see it. So Mom ordered it. It looks like she did." "You still saying we don't know motive?" "Yes." "You are unbelievably annoying." "I know." Adam was standing at the kitchen island pouring coffee. He hid a smile behind the mug. The next step was Dad. Erin and I agreed to call him together, because neither of us wanted him relaying one conversation to the other afterward. He answered on the 4th ring, sounding wary, before either of us said why we were calling. "Both of you on the same call," he said. "That's new." I ignored that. "Dad, I need you to answer some factual questions." He sighed. "Claire, your mother is already upset enough." I didn't ask whether Mom was upset. That sharpened him. "Watch your tone. I'm 38. I'm asking whether you ever helped mail the Christmas cards." Silence. Then, "sometimes." Did you see the green cards? I don't know what you mean by green. The ones Mom mailed to relatives and friends. Did you see them? Another pause. I helped stuff envelopes. Did you notice those cards were different from the prints you gave me? Dad exhaled slowly. Your mother did different versions. Aaron cut in. So you knew. I knew there were different versions. Your mother likes personalized things. I felt my jaw tighten. Did you know Maisie was missing from the mailed version? He did not answer fast enough. Dad, I saw the cards. That sentence changed something for me. Not because it meant he had helped design them. He had not. Not because it meant he understood why Mom had chosen Ruby instead. I still did not know that. But he had looked at a family Christmas card that removed his granddaughter and mailed it anyway. Did you ever ask Mom why? I said. He gave the answer I expected. She said you didn't want Maisie's picture going out to everyone. And you believed her? Why wouldn't I? Because you knew the print you handed me was different. That doesn't mean anything. Your mother handled the details. I heard Erin make a sound under her breath. I kept my voice even. Did you ask me? No. Did you ever ask Erin? No. Did you ask anyone except Mom? Dad's patience finally cracked. I was not going to start another argument over Christmas cards. Your mother said she had it handled. I trusted her. There it was. Not ignorance. Convenience. I wrote his words down in the verified column. Erin asked, Did Mom ever tell you not to mix the envelopes? Dad hesitated again. There were separate stacks. What separate stacks? The family prints and the mailed cards. Red, blue, green, whatever colors she used. She had a system. I looked at the studio summary in front of me. Did you know which stack went to Claire? Erin asked. Red. And which one got mailed out? Green. My pen stopped. Dad seemed to realize what he had just confirmed because he immediately added, That doesn't mean I knew she was doing something wrong. No, I said. It means you knew the pictures were different and never asked me why. You're making this into something bigger than it was. My daughter was removed from every Christmas card you mailed for 6 years. And your mother thought she was respecting your wishes. I almost raised my voice then. Instead, I asked one last question. Dad, if I had actually asked for privacy, why would I agree to Ruby being edited into the place where Maisie stood? He had no answer. When the call ended, Erin stayed on the line. He knew more than I thought, she said. He knew enough to ask. That's worse. Yes. I added Dad's involvement to the first column but left his motive out. I was beginning to understand something about him too. He did not need to be part of Mom's plan to make it possible. All he had to do was decide that avoiding a fight mattered more than checking whether what she told him was true. That evening, Erin and I went through older messages again, this time looking less for individual lies and more for a pattern in who Mom praised. In 2020, she told me Erin was so much easier lately. A year later, when Erin pushed back about a holiday schedule, Mom had texted me, At least you understand what family means. In another thread, she told Erin I was too independent for my own good. Months later, she told me Erin still needed too much hand-holding. There was no permanent golden child. The role moved. Whoever agreed with Mom became the reasonable daughter. Whoever challenged her became selfish, difficult, or dramatic. I had spent years believing Erin was favored because Erin had spent more time close to Mom. Erin had spent years believing I was the one Mom respected because I was harder to control. We were both right in pieces and wrong in the way that mattered most. The reward was not love. The reward was compliance. And suddenly Ruby's place in the photographs made more sense. Erin still cared deeply what Mom thought. She still called her first. She still let Mom coordinate schedules and family details. Ruby lived closer to Mom's center because Erin did. Maisie lived farther from it because I had already moved myself farther away. I did not write that in verified. It was still an interpretation, but for the first time it explained more than Mom likes Erin better ever had. Before we hung up that night, Erin said, New rule. I thought we already had one. Another one. If Mom says you said something about me, I ask you. And if she says you said something about me, I ask you. No exceptions. Agreed. The rule was tested less than 3 hours later. Mom texted me at 9:14. Erin just called me crying. I warned you that talking to her directly would only make this worse. I read it twice, then sent Erin a screenshot with one question. Are you crying? Her reply came almost instantly. No. Mom just called me and said you were. The first thing Erin wanted to do the next morning was call everyone we could think of. She had barely slept, and I could hear it in her voice when she said, "If Mom has been doing this for years, I want to know how far it goes." I understood the impulse, but I also knew how quickly a family investigation could turn into another version of the same problem. If we called 20 relatives asking whether Mom had lied about us, we would be creating pressure, planting assumptions, and giving people a story before they had facts. So I told Erin we were choosing 3 incidents, 3 people, and 3 questions. Nothing more, until we knew whether the pattern actually extended beyond us. The first person I called was Aunt Helen, my father's sister. For years, I had assumed she had simply stopped liking me. There was an annual summer cookout at her house that Adam and I used to attend, and then one year the invitations stopped. I had never confronted her because, at the time, Maisie was young, life was busy, and I told myself people drifted. When Helen answered, I did not ask. Did Mom tell you not to invite me? I asked a narrower question. Aunt Helen, do you remember why you stopped sending the cookout invitation directly to me? She was quiet for a few seconds, then said, Marilyn told me the gatherings were getting to be too much for Maisie, and that you didn't want people pressuring you. I closed my eyes. I had never said that. Helen sounded genuinely confused when I told her so, and then embarrassed. I thought I was respecting your parenting, she said. I should have asked you myself. I told her that was all I needed to know. Erin handled the second call. A cousin of ours had hosted a baby shower several years earlier, one Erin had been furious about missing because she believed I had gone and deliberately never mentioned it to her. The host remembered sending Erin's invitation through Mom because Mom had volunteered to make sure all the family envelopes got where they needed to go. A week before the shower, Mom told the host Erin could not make it. Erin had never received the invitation and had never declined. The discovery did not prove Mom had orchestrated every missed event in our adult lives, but it showed the same structural weakness over and over. We had let one person become the route through which invitations, explanations, and apologies traveled. Once that happened, nobody checked the route anymore. When Erin called me afterward, she was angry in a way I recognized from myself. She made us look unreliable to everybody. Sometimes, I said, you're still qualifying it? Yes, because we asked 2 people, not the entire county. She let out an aggravated breath. You know what I mean. I do. I also know what happens if we decide every hurt feeling from the last 15 years was Mom. Then the first thing someone proves was actually our fault. Everything else becomes easier to dismiss. That finally slowed her down. A few minutes later, she admitted something I had not expected her to say so soon. I noticed Ruby got more attention. Her voice had changed. Not the cards. I mean everything. More sleepovers. More pictures on Mom's mantle. More little gifts. Mom always wanted Ruby beside her, I noticed. I stayed quiet, and Erin continued. I told myself it was because Ruby was closer to her, and if I'm being honest, I liked it. I liked knowing my kid was the one Mom picked first. That hurt to hear. But it was also the first time Erin had taken responsibility without hiding behind Mom. I didn't know she was lying to you, she said, but I benefited from something I could tell wasn't equal, and I didn't ask questions. I told her I was not ready to tell her. That was fine. She said she was not asking me to. The third conversation began because I remembered something about the green cards. Some of the people who received them were not relatives. Mom had spent years volunteering with a local program called the Christmas Families Drive at the Oak Ridge Community Center, organizing donated toys, grocery gift cards, delivery schedules, and the endless stream of emails that came with all of it. She was the volunteer communications coordinator, which suited her perfectly. She kept address lists, remembered who had responded, knew which family had missed a deadline, and could tell you exactly who still owed a form. People there saw her as dependable, generous, and intensely family-oriented. A few of those volunteers and community friends had been on the green card mailing list for years. I did not call the entire committee. I contacted Dana Walsh, who chaired the 5-person steering committee and had known Mom through the program for a long time. I had met her maybe 3 times. We were not friends. I wrote a short message asking one question. Did my mother ever tell you I did not want Maisie's photograph circulated? Dana called me instead of texting back. She sounded cautious. Claire, I don't want to get in the middle of something personal, but yes. Marilyn has said for years that you preferred your daughter not be on widely mailed family cards. I asked whether she remembered when. At least since 2021, she said. I thought it was a privacy choice. Before I could decide what to say next, Dana added, I'm asking because your mother sent something to our volunteer list this morning. My stomach tightened. She forwarded it while we were still on the phone. Mom had used the Christmas Families Drive email list to tell active volunteers that I was dealing with a jealous family issue involving old photographs and might contact people with distorted claims. She advised them not to engage and said the matter was private. I read the message twice. It was not a legal threat. It was worse in a quieter way. She had taken a family conflict that existed only among a handful of people and used an official community channel to define me before I had contacted anyone there except Dana. I didn't send anything to your volunteers, I said. I know, Dana replied. That's why I called. I asked her not to do anything on my behalf. I'm not asking the program to judge my mother as a parent? Good, Dana said, because we wouldn't. That answer made me trust her more. She continued. But using the program list for a private dispute is something the steering committee does care about. I told her I could explain why I had asked about the photos, but only if she wanted the narrow version. Dana said she did. So I told her I had discovered that the Christmas cards Mom and Dad mailed for 6 years excluded Maisie, while the private print given to me still included her. I told her Mom had explained the missing photo to other people as my privacy request, which I had never made. I did not send NICU texts. I did not tell her every ugly thing Mom had said to Aaron. I did not describe Dad's silence or the voice memo sitting in my phone. Those things had nothing to do with the volunteer program. Dana was quiet, then said, Give me a minute. I want to search something. About 10 minutes later, an email arrived from her. It was an old message from Mom dated December 2021, sent to a small volunteer thread that included Dana. Mom had written, Claire prefers that Maisie's picture not be circulated, so our holiday card uses Ruby this year. Thanks for understanding. There it was in writing. Not something Aunt Helen remembered. Not Aaron's interpretation. Not a conversation filtered through somebody else. Mom had told people outside the family that I personally requested the very thing I had just discovered had been done to my daughter. I replied with one sentence. I never made that request. Dana called again a few minutes later. I believe you need to know something else, she said. Your mother didn't just email the volunteer list. She asked people not to respond to you if you contacted them. I saw that. The steering committee is going to ask her why she used the program email for this. I stood at my kitchen window, looking out at the gray December afternoon. Dana, I don't want this turned into a public fight. Neither do I, she said. This is about the list, not your family. We'll handle our part. After we hung up, I called Erin and told her what Dana had found. Erin went silent when I read the 2021 email aloud. Then she said, She was telling everyone the same lie. No, I said, that's the problem. She wasn't telling everyone the same lie. She told them I wanted privacy. She told me you wanted Ruby to have the spotlight. She told you I had agreed. Erin did not answer for a few seconds. Then my phone buzzed with another forwarded email from Dana. Mom's message from that morning was highlighted at the bottom, including the sentence telling volunteers not to engage with me. Dana had added one line above it. The committee is going to ask Marilyn about this directly. Dana kept her promise about staying in her lane. The next morning she called me and said the steering committee was not interested in sorting out who had been favored, who had been lied to at Christmas, or whether my mother had been a good parent. Their concern was narrower. Marilyn had used the Christmas Families Drive email list to warn volunteers about me, tell them not to respond to me, and frame a private dispute through an official channel. Dana said they would address that directly with her. I thanked her and told her I would not send anything else unless they asked for something specific. That mattered to me. The more I learned, the more careful I became about not turning evidence into ammunition just because I was angry. Mom must have sensed that the usual explanations were no longer working because she changed tactics. Instead of calling me, she went after Aaron. I was at my desk working when Aaron sent me a message that afternoon. No greeting, no context, just one sentence. "Did you really say this?" Attached beneath it was the voice memo from 2022. I recognized the file immediately because I had seen it in our old message thread at the coffee shop. I had sent it to Mom after Aaron, and I had one of the ugliest arguments we had ever had. I put in my earbuds and played it anyway. My own voice came back at me, tired and furious. "I'm done trying with Aaron. She makes everything about herself. I'm tired of every family thing turning into some test I'm apparently failing." There was more, but not much. Less than a minute. Mom had not edited it. She had not cut words together. She had not secretly recorded me. I had sent it to her myself. For the first time since Maisie found those cards, I felt the ground shift under me in a way that had nothing to do with Mom lying. This was mine. I called Erin. She answered, but her voice was flat. "So? So yes, I said it." Silence. "You didn't even hesitate," she said, "because I remember saying it. Mom said you've been acting like she invented every problem between us. I haven't. That's not what it feels like." I closed my laptop. "Then that's on me too." She did not respond. I could hear traffic faintly on her end. She was probably in her car, and for a second I wondered if she had pulled over the way I had with Maisie. Then I caught myself. I did not know where she was, and I had become very conscious of how easily I had once filled in missing information. Aaron said, "You called me selfish." "I did. You said you were done trying with me." "Yes. And now you want me to believe Mom is the reason we aren't close." "No." That stopped her. I took a breath. I think Mom made things worse. I think she fed both of us different versions of each other. I think she lied about things that mattered. But I also think we said real things and did real damage ourselves. That voice memo is one of mine. Erin was quiet for a long time. Finally she said, "I need space." "I understand. Don't text me 10 times trying to fix it." "I won't." She hung up. I sat there staring at my desk long after the call ended. I was angry at Mom for sending the memo, but that anger was easier than the other feeling. Shame. Not because I had once been furious with Aaron. We had both given each other reasons for that. Shame because, for several days, I had started slipping into a very comfortable version of the story where Mom was responsible for everything and I was simply the person finally uncovering the truth. That version was cleaner. It was also false. Adam came home and found me in the kitchen with the memo open on my phone. "What happened?" he asked. I handed it to him. He listened. When it ended, he set the phone down gently. "Did you say it?" "Yes." He nodded once. I looked at him. "That's all you're going to say? What do you want me to say?" "That Mom used it to hurt us." "She did." "That she took it out of context." "Did she?" I hated the question because I knew the answer. "Not really." Adam pulled out the chair across from me. "Then don't fight the part that's true." I rubbed my forehead. "You make that sound easy." I didn't say easy. He was right. If I started denying the voice memo because Mom was using it unfairly, I would be doing exactly what I had spent the last week accusing her of doing. Choosing the version of reality that protected me best. That evening, Mom called. Her voice was softer than it had been since this started. "I don't understand why you're doing this to yourself," she said. "What am I doing?" "Convincing Aaron. I destroyed your relationship." "I never said that." "You don't have to. That's what all these screenshots and little meetings are supposed to prove." I did not answer. Mom continued. "You two have always been hard on each other. You say things, then you regret them. Aaron takes everything personally. You shut down. I was the one trying to keep things from getting worse." There it was. Not denial. Justification. "You told her I didn't want her at the hospital," I said. I softened things. "You told me she didn't want me there. She was exhausted. You told her I didn't want her around after Maisie was born. You needed rest. You told people I asked you to erase Maisie from the Christmas cards." Her tone changed. "I was protecting your privacy." No, you were deciding what I wanted and then telling everyone I had asked for it. You don't understand what it's like being the person everyone calls when the two of you are upset. I almost laughed. Mom, nobody appointed you to translate us. Someone had to. That answer stayed with me. Not someone should have helped. Someone had to. I said, that's the difference between us. What is? I think people should be allowed to say the wrong thing and answer for it themselves. Mom went silent. Then she said, you're going to regret tearing all this open. Maybe. You think Erin is suddenly going to become the sister you wanted? No. That answer seemed to unsettle her more than anything else I had said. I continued, I'm not doing this because I think Erin and I were secretly wonderful to each other. I'm doing it because I want to know which parts were ours. Mom's voice went cold. You always did need to make everything clinical. I ended the call soon after that. I did not call Erin again. I did not send her a defense of the voice memo or an explanation of what Mom had said. I sent one message. I said it. Mom didn't make me say it. When you're ready, I'll answer for my part. Then I left it alone. One day passed. Then another. I told myself that if Erin decided she was finished, I would have to accept that too. Truth did not guarantee reconciliation. It only gave us the chance to stop making decisions based on things that had never happened. Late on the second night, my phone buzzed. It was Erin. I'm still angry at you. A second message followed. But I found something Dad can explain. Then a third. He knew the mailed card was different. I want him to say how much he knew. Erin and I agreed to meet Dad without Mom present. That sounds simple now, but in my family it was almost a procedural change. For years, even when one of us called Dad directly, Mom had a way of joining the conversation later, filling in what she thought someone meant, or explaining why a question had been unfair. This time, Erin told him we needed answers about the Christmas cards and asked him to meet us at a quiet diner near his side of town. He tried twice to suggest we come to the house instead. We said no both times. Before he arrived, Erin and I talked about the voice memo because I did not want it sitting between us like an unexploded device. I told her again that I had meant what I said in that moment, in 2022, even though I regretted it now. I did not add that Mom had probably pushed us toward that fight. I did not explain context until Erin asked for it. When she finally did, I told her the truth. I had been angry about the way she handled a disagreement involving the girls, and I had let years of resentment turn one argument into a judgment about her entire personality. You always thought I was selfish, she said. For a long time, yes. She looked down at her coffee. I thought you were cold. That one I know. I called you controlling too. I know that one. Her mouth twitched. Mom told you? You told me yourself once. That made her laugh despite herself, and the sound surprised both of us. It did not erase anything, but it was the first time in years we had acknowledged something ugly without immediately reaching for a weapon. Dad came in 10 minutes late and looked from me to Erin with the expression of a man who already believed he had been placed in the middle of something unreasonable. He slid into the booth and said, I hope we can keep this calm. I hope we can keep it factual, I said. He sighed. Same thing. No, Dad, they're not. I had written 4 questions on a page in front of me. Erin had teased me about it in the parking lot, but she stopped smiling when I read the first one. Who stuffed the green Christmas card envelopes? Dad looked at me. You already asked me this. I'm asking again because I want a complete answer. Your mother and I did. Did you see the cards? Yes. Did you know the green card was different from the red print you gave me? Yes. The answer came faster this time. Erin leaned forward. Did you know Maisie was missing? Dad's eyes shifted toward the window. I saw the card. That's not an answer, Erin said. Yes, I knew she wasn't on it. Something inside me went very still. I had already suspected that. But hearing him say it in a fluorescent-lit diner over untouched coffee made it less abstract. I asked, Did you know I had never approved that? No. Did you ask me? No. Why? Because your mother told me you wanted privacy. I nodded once. And that was enough? At the time, yes. Dad rubbed both hands over his face. You have to understand, your mother handled the photo orders. She dealt with the mailing list. She told me you didn't want Maisie's picture sent to people you barely knew. That sounded reasonable. For 1 year, I said. What about the next 5? He did not answer immediately. Aaron said, You mailed them every year. Yes. And every year Maisie was still gone. Yes. And you never asked Claire once? Dad's jaw tightened. I didn't think I had a reason to. I heard my own voice go colder. A child disappearing from every family Christmas card wasn't a reason? He looked at me then. I did ask your mother. That was new. When? I don't remember the exact year. Maybe 2022. What did you ask? He hesitated. I asked why the red print was different from the green card again. Aaron and I looked at each other. What did she say? I asked. That you knew, that you wanted it that way. Did you write that anywhere? Dad frowned. What? Email, text, anything. He looked annoyed. Claire, I don't keep records of conversations with my wife. Then say you don't. He pushed his coffee away. You always do this. You make people feel like they're being interrogated. I'm asking about 6 years of photographs involving my daughter. You already know your mother handled it. That doesn't answer whether you helped. His expression changed. Not guilt exactly. More like irritation at being denied the role of bystander. Dad said, I stuffed envelopes. I put stamps on them. I trusted my wife. If you want to call that helping, fine. I do. He leaned back. Then I guess you have your answer. Aaron put a hand on the table. No, we have half of it. She asked about Ruby's NICU stay. Dad's face tightened again. What does that have to do with Christmas cards? Maybe nothing, Aaron said. That's why we're asking. She told him she remembered asking Mom why I had not come to the hospital. I told Dad I remembered calling Mom and saying I would come whenever Aaron wanted me there. He stared between us, and for the first time that morning he looked genuinely uncomfortable. I remember you calling, he said to me. And? You asked if Aaron wanted visitors. What did Mom tell you? She said Aaron was exhausted. Aaron said, and later I asked why Claire hadn't come. Dad looked at her. You remember that too? She asked. Yes. What did Mom tell you then? That Claire was waiting until things settled down. I felt something drop into place. Dad had heard both sides. Not years later. At the time, you knew those statements didn't match, I said. He looked down at the table. Dad, I noticed. Aaron's voice sharpened. And you said nothing? What was I supposed to do? Your mother was stressed, you were in the NICU, everybody was emotional. I didn't want another fight. There it was again. Not confusion. Not helplessness. A choice. He had seen 2 pieces that did not fit and decided peace was more important than truth. I thought I would feel vindicated. Mostly I felt tired. After a long silence, Dad said, There might be something in my old email. I looked up. What? I used to email your mother from my work account when she was placing photo orders because I'd forget things otherwise. I remember asking about the card 1 year. Can you find it? I can look. He did not do it in front of us. I was glad. I did not want him fumbling through years of inboxes while Aaron and I sat there watching. We finished the conversation, and before we left, Dad tried once more to soften what he had admitted. Your mother really believed she was keeping things under control. I stood and put on my coat. That may explain her. It doesn't explain you. His face fell. I continued. Thank you for answering today. But answering now doesn't turn 6 years of not asking into an accident. He did not argue. That evening, an email from Dad landed in my inbox. Subject line, found this. It was a forwarded exchange from December 2022. Dad had written to Mom. The red print is different from the green cards again. Claire knows, right? Mom replied. Yes. She asked for privacy. Please just mail them. I read it twice. Then a third time. The message did not prove Dad knew Mom was lying. It proved something more uncomfortable, because it was harder to dismiss. He had noticed the difference. He had asked one question. He had received the easiest possible answer, and he had stopped there. I forwarded it to Erin. She called me almost immediately, so he knew enough to ask. Yes, and not enough to care if the answer was true. I did not correct her. The next morning, Dana contacted me again. She said the steering committee had discussed Mom's use of the Christmas Families Drive email list. They were not asking for my entire family history. They wanted only the material relevant to statements Mom had made through the program. I sent 4 things. The recent volunteer list email where Mom warned people not to engage with me. The old 2021 email Dana had already found, saying I did not want Maisie's picture circulated. 1 red keepsake print beside the matching green mailed card. And the studio order summary, showing separate red and green products, including the ruby-centered composite. Nothing from the NICU. Nothing about Aaron's birth visit. Nothing from my voice memo. Nothing about Dad. Those things were ours. Dana replied less than an hour later. Thank you. This is enough for us to address the communications issue. I thought that would be the end of the community side of it. I was wrong. 2 days before the Christmas Families Drive's scheduled post-holiday closeout, Mom used the official volunteer list again. This time she wrote that false allegations had been circulating about her family and that she intended to clear the matter up in person at the closeout meeting. She invited active volunteers to stay after the normal agenda if they wanted to hear the truth directly instead of through screenshots and gossip. When I read it, I felt almost nothing at first. Then I realized what she had done. Dana had tried to keep the issue narrow. I had tried to keep it narrow. Mom had just created an audience. My phone rang. Dana. I did not ask her to send that, she said before I could speak. I know. The committee still plans to address the list misuse privately. Okay. Dana paused. But your mother has now invited the volunteers into this herself. If she talks about you at the closeout, you have the right to answer. I looked at the email again. For years, Mom had survived by deciding which version each person got. Now, for the first time, she was insisting that everyone hear the same conversation. Before I agreed to go to the closeout meeting, Adam asked me one question that turned out to matter more than anything I planned to say there. What do you actually want from this? I was standing at the kitchen counter with the red keepsake print, the green Christmas card, and the studio order summary spread in front of me, and for a few seconds I did not answer. I did not want the Christmas Families Drive to decide whether Mom had been a good mother. I did not want strangers voting on whether Aaron or I had been treated fairly, and I definitely did not want a room full of volunteers turning Maisie into a symbol. What I wanted was narrower. I wanted Mom to stop using an organization's mailing list to tell people what I supposedly thought, and I wanted her false statement about Maisie's photo corrected in the same space where she had made it. Adam nodded. Then don't let her change the subject. That was easier to say in our kitchen than it was to do at the Oak Ridge Community Center 2 nights later. Aaron met me in the parking lot, and neither of us said much before we went inside. The regular Christmas Families Drive closeout had already started, so we sat near the back while Dana and the steering committee went through donation totals, delivery issues, leftover supplies, and next year's scheduling notes. There were maybe a dozen active volunteers in the room. Mom was 2 rows ahead of us, smiling at people, thanking them, telling one woman how wonderful the drive had gone. If I had not known what had happened, I would have seen exactly what everyone else saw. A capable woman who had spent years making complicated things look easy. When the normal agenda ended, Dana closed her folder but did not stand up. Before we finish, she said, we need to address use of the program email list for a private matter. The room changed immediately. People stopped gathering their coats. Dana was careful with her wording. She said the committee was not there to evaluate anyone's family relationships and would not be doing that. The issue was that the official volunteer list had been used twice to make claims about a named individual and to ask volunteers not to communicate with her. Because Mom had also invited the group to stay and hear her explanation, Dana said Claire and Aaron had been invited to respond to any statements made about them. Mom turned in her chair and looked directly at me. I'm glad you came, she said. Maybe we can finally stop this from becoming something it isn't. I kept my hands folded in my lap. That's why I'm here. She stood before Dana asked her to, and faced the room instead of the committee. My daughter has been upset about old family Christmas cards, she began. There have been years of tension between Claire and Aaron. And unfortunately, those feelings are being attached to photographs that were never meant to hurt anyone. Her voice was steady, almost sad. Claire has always been very protective of her daughter, and I tried to respect that. Now I'm being accused of erasing a child from the family. That phrase irritated me because she said it like she had never seen the cards. I still did not interrupt. Mom continued, This isn't new. Claire has had resentment toward her sister for years. I wish I didn't have to bring private things into this, but since screenshots have already been circulated, context matters. Then she picked up her phone. I knew what was coming before she pressed play. My own voice filled the room from 3 years earlier. I'm done trying with Erin. She makes everything about herself. I'm tired of every family thing turning into some test I'm apparently failing. The memo was still humiliating to hear, especially in front of people I barely knew. For 1 second, I felt the old instinct to explain everything around it. The argument. The history. What Erin had said first. Then I remembered the kitchen table and Adam asking what I wanted. When the recording stopped, Mom looked at Dana. That's the relationship I was dealing with. Dana looked toward me. Claire, do you dispute that recording? No. A few people glanced at me. I sent it to my mother in 2022 after a fight with Erin, I said. I said those things. Erin and I have already discussed them, and I'm responsible for them. Mom's expression changed slightly. I went on. But that recording has nothing to do with whether I asked my mother to remove Maisie from Christmas cards, because I never did. Dana nodded and picked up a printed page. That is the question I want to keep us on. Mom sat down again, more slowly this time. Dana asked me directly, did you ever ask Marilyn not to circulate Maisie's image in mailed Christmas cards? No. Did you know the mailed card was different from the keepsake print you received? Not until December 22nd. I took the red print from my folder and placed it on the table at the front of the room. Maisie was standing beside Mom. Then I placed the green mailed card from the same year next to it. In that version, Maisie was gone, and Ruby occupied the center. I did not explain it dramatically. I did not need to. Erin stood beside me and placed her blue keepsake print next to both. This is the version Mom gave me, she said. She told me Claire knew about the mailed card and wanted Ruby used because Claire didn't want Maisie's picture circulated. Mom immediately said, that was the understanding at the time. I opened the studio order summary and pointed to the 3 product lines. Red keepsake, blue keepsake, green holiday card. The green card was deliberately ordered as a separate finished version. Mom shook her head. Of course it was separate. That doesn't mean anything sinister. I didn't say sinister. You don't have to. Dana interrupted before I could answer. Marilyn, the committee has a copy of an email you sent in 2021. Mom looked at her. Dana read only the relevant sentence. Claire prefers that Maisie's picture not be circulated. So our holiday card uses Ruby this year. That was what I had been told, Mom said. By whom? Dana asked. Mom glanced at me. By Claire over time. She was always careful about privacy. I shook my head. I never told you that. Mom's voice tightened. Maybe not in those exact words. That was the first real crack. One of the steering committee members, a man named Martin who had barely spoken all evening, leaned forward. So did Claire ask you not to use Maisie's picture, or did you make that decision because you believed it was what she wanted? Mom looked at him with visible irritation. I was trying to avoid upsetting anyone. The room went quiet. Dana asked, those are different explanations. Mom turned toward me again. Because family decisions are not contracts, they are conversations. Claire has always been sensitive about Maisie. And Erin has always needed reassurance that Ruby wasn't being treated like an afterthought. I was trying to balance 2 daughters who cannot be in the same room without turning everything into a competition. Erin's shoulders stiffened beside me, but she did not interrupt. I said, then why did you tell Erin I agreed? Mom ignored the question. Erin asked it again. Why did you tell me Claire agreed? Mom's face hardened. Because if I told you exactly how Claire talked about you back then, you would have been devastated. That's not an answer. I was protecting both of you. No, Erin said. You were deciding what each of us was allowed to know. Mom pushed her chair back and stood. She looked around the room as if everyone else had somehow forced her into a position beneath them. You people are hearing fragments. I have spent 30 years keeping this family together. Claire pulls away. Erin reacts. Then everyone calls me because I'm the one who has to clean it up. Nobody answered. Mom looked at me and Erin sitting side by side. Something in her expression shifted from defense to anger. You two have no idea what happens when you get together, she said. Someone always gets shut out. I heard the words and understood for the first time that she was no longer talking about Christmas cards at all. Mom's sentence hung in the room longer than anything else she had said that night. Until then, I had thought her greatest fear was being exposed as dishonest. I had thought the Christmas cards mattered because they protected the image she liked showing other people. Standing in that community center, looking at the way she watched Aaron and me sitting together, I finally understood that the photographs were only one expression of something older. Mom did not just want to be included. She needed to be necessary. Aaron must have heard it too, because she did not argue about the cards first. She asked, "Who gets shut out?" Mom looked at her as though the answer should have been obvious. "You know exactly what I mean." "No," Aaron said. "I don't." Mom crossed her arms. "When you two get close, everything becomes about the two of you. You talk, you compare notes, you make decisions, and suddenly everybody else is the enemy." I could have asked when that had ever happened, but Aaron got there another way. "Why didn't you just tell us both the same thing?" Mom blinked. Aaron continued. "If Claire said something cruel about me, why didn't you tell me what she actually said? If I said something about her, why didn't you tell her the same version? Why did everything have to change depending on who you were talking to?" Mom's face tightened. "Because neither of you could handle the truth without turning on each other." "You never gave us the chance," Aaron said. That was the first time all evening Mom looked less angry than frightened. She turned toward Dana and the other volunteers, almost as if she needed a new audience to restore the balance. "This is what I mean. They're doing it right now. They take every decision I made trying to keep things calm and turn it into manipulation." Dana remained seated. "Marilyn, the committee is not deciding whether you managed your daughters well. We're addressing what you said through the program email and whether those statements were accurate." They were accurate as I understood them. I opened my folder. I did not bring out anything new. That mattered to me. First, I placed the screenshot Aaron had shown me from 2021. Mom telling her that I had asked for limited circulation of Maisie's picture. Then Dana placed the email from that same year beside it. Mom telling community contacts that I preferred Maisie not be shown on the mailed card. Finally, I placed the message Mom had sent me during that Christmas season, telling me Aaron wanted 1 year where Ruby did not have to share the spotlight. 3 explanations. Same family. Same season. Mom stared at them. I said, "Which one was true?" She looked at me. "You are taking private conversations out of context. They contradict each other. Families are complicated. That doesn't make 3 different stories become one." Mom's voice rose. "I was trying to keep both of you from being hurt." Aaron said, "By telling me Claire agreed to something she didn't even know existed? You would have made a scene." "How do you know?" "Because I know you." "No," Aaron said. "You decided what I would do, then treated your prediction like permission." Mom turned away from her and looked at me instead. "And you? You act like you're so reasonable now? You sent me that recording. You said you were done with her. I know. You called her selfish. I know. You didn't trust her. I didn't." Mom spread her hands. "Then why are we pretending I created this?" "We're not." That stopped her again. I continued. "I said those things. Aaron and I have both admitted what was ours. That is why this is different now. We can be angry with each other without needing you to translate it." For a moment, Mom had nothing to say. Then she looked around the room and laughed once under her breath. "You all think this is simple because you weren't there for 30 years. Claire has always been difficult. She shuts people out when she doesn't like what she hears. Aaron takes things personally. I have spent my entire adult life cleaning up after both of them." I saw several volunteers shift in their seats. Mom noticed too, but she misread it. She kept going. "You know me. You know what I do. I remember birthdays. I organize deliveries. I make sure people get where they need to be. I keep everyone connected. That's what I have always done." Dana said quietly, "That's not the same as deciding what people are allowed to know." Mom's head snapped toward her. "Sometimes people need managing." The silence after that was absolute. She realized too late what she had said. I did not need to point it out. One of the steering committee members folded his hands on the table and asked, "Is that why you told volunteers not to communicate with Claire?" Mom's tone hardened. I told them not to get dragged into family drama, using the program email list, because she was contacting program people. I contacted Dana, I said. One person. Mom looked at me. You were going to contact more. No. You assumed I would. That is what you do. I almost answered, then stopped. The pattern was sitting in front of everyone now. She predicted what someone would do, acted as if the prediction were fact, then used that invented fact to justify controlling what happened next. Dana closed the folder in front of her. Marilyn, the steering committee has discussed the list used twice now. At this point, we need you to relinquish access to the volunteer email account and step back from communications coordination while we review what happened. Mom stared at her. You're removing me? We're asking you to step back pending review. After everything I've done for this program, this is about use of the official communication system. Mom looked around the room again. So, that's it? Years of work? And now I'm being investigated because my daughter decided to punish me? No, Dana said. You used the program list for a personal dispute after being told the program was not involved. Mom's face flushed. Then I resign. Nobody spoke. She reached into her bag, pulled out the small program folder she carried to every meeting, and pushed it across the table. Dana told her they would change the email password and transfer access formally the next morning. That was it. No security. No dramatic vote. No applause. Mom had spent years building her identity around being the person everyone relied on to communicate, and when asked to temporarily surrender that role, she chose to walk away rather than be reviewed. Outside, the air was cold enough to make my eyes water. Erin had gone to her car when Mom caught up with me near the curb. Are you happy now? She asked. No. She stopped. You embarrassed me in front of everyone. You invited them. You sent them private evidence. I sent Dana the things related to the claims you made through their email system. You knew what would happen. No, I knew they would ask questions. Mom stepped closer. You wanted them to think I was some kind of monster. I never called you one. You destroyed my reputation. I told the truth about my daughter. She lowered her voice. Then fix it. What? Tell Dana this got out of hand. Tell them I was trying to protect the family. Tell them it was a misunderstanding. I looked at her for a long moment. I won't lie to repair the image you built by lying about my child. Her face changed. Not sadness. Rage. You wanted to humiliate me. I wanted you to stop. You chose the audience. She stared at me as if I had become someone she did not recognize, then turned and walked toward Dad's car. Later that night, after Maisie was asleep, my phone lit up with a message from Mom. If you're taking Christmas away from me, don't expect me to keep pretending we're a family. I read it once and set the phone down. For years, Mom had treated being in the middle of everything as proof that she was loved. That night, I finally understood she had confused being central with being necessary, and being necessary with being family. By the end of January, Mom had officially resigned as communications coordinator for the Christmas Families Drive. There was no newspaper story, no public scandal, and no dramatic announcement that everyone in Louis County had suddenly turned against her. That would not have been realistic anyway. Some of the volunteers still liked her. A few told Dana they thought the situation had become too personal. Others simply stopped asking Mom to handle things. The program transferred the email account, updated the volunteer contact list, and moved on with someone else in charge. The consequence was smaller than public destruction, and in some ways, harsher for Mom because it was ordinary. The work continued without her. Messages still went out. Donations still got organized. People still found each other without needing Marilyn Donovan to stand between them. The same thing began happening in our family. There was no meeting where Erin and I announced a new constitution or voted Mom out of anything. We simply stopped routing our lives through her. If Aunt Helen wanted to invite me somewhere, she texted me. If Erin needed to change a weekend plan involving the girls, she called me. If Dad said, "Your mother told me Erin thinks," I stopped him and said I would ask Erin myself. Erin did the same with me. At first, it felt almost embarrassingly basic. We were adults learning to do something we should have been doing for years. Speak directly to the person involved. Mom hated it. She called less after the closeout meeting. But when she did, the conversations followed the same pattern. She would start by talking about something normal, then slide toward what someone else supposedly felt. Aaron was very hurt. Dad was worried about the family. Aunt Helen thought I had gone too far. I stopped responding to those statements as information. If Erin wants me to know she's hurt, she can tell me, I said once. Mom went silent. You really want to turn this family into a bunch of strangers? No, I want people to speak for themselves. That isn't how families work. It's how mine works now. I could hear how cold that sounded, and months later I still think about it. One of my flaws had always been that once I decided a relationship was too exhausting, I could become very efficient about reducing it. I did not want to turn a healthy boundary into punishment just because punishment felt cleaner. So I did not block Mom. I did not tell Dad he had to choose between us. I did not send screenshots around the extended family every time Mom said something manipulative. I answered what concerned me, ignored what did not, and made decisions based on what she actually did next. The hardest boundary involved the girls. Aaron and I agreed that neither Maisie nor Ruby would spend unsupervised time with Mom for a while. That decision was not about whether we thought she would physically hurt them. We did not. It was about the fact that she had already begun teaching them the same hierarchy she had used on us. Ruby was the good picture girl. Maisie was the child who needed to stand aside for a different version of the family. We were not going to wait until the girls were old enough to start comparing which one Grandma loved more. I kept my explanation to Maisie simple. I told her Grandma had made an unfair choice with the Christmas pictures, and that grown-ups were fixing it. I told her again that Ruby had done nothing wrong. I never showed her the committee emails. I never told her Grandma had lied about her. 6-year-olds do not need the emotional burden of understanding why an adult failed them. They need to know who is safe, who is responsible, and whether they caused it. Maisie asked me once, "Is Grandma mad at me?" No. Then why did she take me out? I had rehearsed a dozen careful answers in my head before that question ever came, and all of them sounded too complicated when she actually asked it. Because Grandma made a bad decision that had nothing to do with whether you deserved to be there. Maisie thought about that, then asked if Ruby knew. No. Good. That was all she needed. Aaron and I were harder. There was no magical repair. We had too much real history for that. Some of it had been manipulated by Mom, but some of it belonged entirely to us. We had said things. We had chosen distance. We had let assumptions harden because checking them would have required vulnerability neither of us wanted to risk. Our first lunch after everything was awkward enough that I almost laughed. We spent 15 minutes talking about school schedules and a grocery store renovation because neither of us knew how to enter the larger conversation without breaking something. Finally, Aaron said, "I owe you an apology that doesn't have Mom's name in it." I looked at her. She continued. "I saw Ruby getting more attention. I didn't know what Mom was saying to you, but I knew things weren't equal. I liked that my daughter was the one being chosen, and I told myself it was harmless. I appreciated that she did not say, 'But Mom manipulated me.' I owe you one too," I said. "I decided you were selfish long before I had evidence for half the things I blamed you for. Then I used distance as proof that I was above the drama. You were good at the distance part." "I know. Still are. That one I'm working on." She smiled. It was small, but it was real. Over the next few months, we built something that looked less dramatic than reconciliation usually looks in stories. Aaron came to a school event for Maisie and texted me directly instead of asking Mom what time it started. I called her one night for no reason except to ask how Ruby was doing with a reading project. She called me the next week because she was angry about something I had said and wanted to hear what I meant before deciding what I meant. We still argued. The difference was that the argument stayed between the people having it. Dad tried to restore his old role more than once. He called in February and said, "Your mother needs time." So do I. She feels like everyone abandoned her. That's something she needs to tell me herself. She doesn't know how. I almost said that was not my problem. Instead, I said, then she has something to learn. Dad was quiet. I did not cut him off, but I stopped accepting him as Mom's translator. If he wanted a relationship with me, he had to have one as himself. He also had to live with the fact that finally answering questions did not erase the years when he chose not to ask any. By late May, the sharpest edges of the winter had worn down. Not disappeared. Just stopped controlling every conversation. Maisie had turned 7 a few weeks earlier, and Aaron invited us over for a small backyard dinner. Ruby was still 7 and had spent most of the afternoon following Maisie around with sidewalk chalk, trying to convince her to help draw an enormous castle across the patio. Mom was not there. That was not revenge. At that point, contact with her was still too unstable, and neither Aaron nor I wanted the girls placed back inside the same emotional system simply because enough calendar pages had turned. Dad came for part of the afternoon and behaved himself. Adam grilled burgers. Aaron burned one batch of corn and blamed the grill until Adam pointed out she had walked away from it for 12 minutes. For once, nothing happened. No speeches. No revelations. No family emergency disguised as tradition. As the sun started to drop, Adam set his phone on a tripod near the edge of the yard. "Group picture?" he asked. Everyone groaned automatically, which made me laugh. We gathered anyway. Maisie grabbed Ruby's hand and pulled her over beside her. Nobody told either girl where to stand. Nobody moved one child toward the center because she photographed better. Nobody asked who should be closest to the adults. Adam set the timer and ran into place. The picture came out imperfect. My hair had blown across one cheek. Dad was looking slightly off camera. Ruby had one eye almost closed. Aaron was laughing instead of posing, and Maisie had leaned toward her cousin so far their shoulders were pressed together. Aaron looked at the screen and said, "Want me to crop it?" I looked at the photo. For 6 years, someone else had decided what our family should look like before other people were allowed to see it. I said, "No." Aaron glanced at me. "Keep it exactly like that." She did. That photograph is still on my phone now, months later. Not because everyone in it is perfect. Not because every relationship in the picture is healed. Mom is not there. Dad still has work to do. Aaron and I are still learning how much of our past belonged to us and how much was handed to us already edited. But nobody in that photograph was removed to make the family easier to explain. Nobody was replaced. Nobody had to earn the center. For most of my life, I thought family stability meant someone had to keep everyone in the right place. What I know now is almost the opposite. A healthy family starts when no one person gets to decide where everybody else belongs. You should never let one person become the only messenger in your family. If someone claims a relative said something hurtful, ask that person directly before judging them. Keep records when stories keep changing. Admit your own mistakes and protect children from favoritism without turning them against each other. Healthy boundaries are not punishment. They are rules that stop manipulation from repeating. You do not need to be perfect to confront dishonesty, but you do need to be truthful about your own part. If this story gave you something useful to remember, subscribe to the channel and stay with us for more.